Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual 2021 annual meeting of members of the League of Women Voters of the City of New York. I'm Natalie Silverman, the program administrator with the LWVNYC. Before we begin the content of the meeting, I'd like to review how we will be using our software, Zoom. If you have any technical difficulties, please call the office at 212-725-3541 or email us at admin@lwvnyc.org. That email address is also available on our website if needed. A few things to note: all participants except for presenters will be muted. We are using the webinar version of Zoom software, so you will only see videos of the presenters and not other participants. Can we see the next slide, please? If you wish to ask a question, make a comment, make a motion, or second a motion, please click the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen and enter them in the box that appears. That's the option circled in pink. Please preference your entry with its category: question, comment, motion, or second. All votes will be taken using the polling function or hand raising. When we get to the business section of our meeting, we will give you instructions on how to vote. You can raise your hand using the raise hand icon to indicate you want to be recognized during verbal discussions. That's the icon circled in green. You can find the Q&A icon here on your screen. And remember, you need to press enter after you type something for it to be sent. Use this function to make comments, motions, or ask questions when a verbal discussion is not taking place. Now, please join me in welcoming our co-presidents, Diane Burrows and Leslie Siegel.
Welcome to the annual meeting of members. The League has made it through a very difficult year, thanks to your incredible work. Today, we are pleased to announce that the League is in a very strong place. We helped thousands of New Yorkers participate in the biggest turnout election in our history. We advocated for changes in New York City and New York State election law that will forever help with access to the polls. We have conducted over 50 ranked choice voter trainings. We continue to register voters and get voters critical information about elections and voting. We partnered with the Philharmonic throughout the pandemic, appearing at pop-up concerts to register and inform voters. Lunch with the League quickly pivoted to At Home with the League, providing topical speakers. We have worked with numerous organizations throughout the city to educate and engage voters. Many of these organizations are new partners, and we hope to continue growing these partnerships to reach more diverse communities in the city. We were able to maintain communications with members, volunteers, and partners through our weekly Gazette, quarterly newsletter, and calls to action. Our Twitter and Instagram feeds saw large increases in traffic. We even found time for some entertainment with a special production of Tea for Three by Elaine Bromka.
Despite our office closing, we were able to quickly adapt to technology such as Zoom, signup.com, salesforce.com, and updates to our phone system so that volunteers could answer calls remotely. As a result, we were able to maintain our same membership level with a slight uptick in dues. We attracted a larger base of volunteers for postcarding and other activities that were easily done remotely. We sold the Lady Pink vote mural to the New York Historical Society to be cared for and enjoyed by thousands of the museum's visitors every day. Since we were not going into the office, we were able to economize by consolidating our office space, saving considerable money on rent. We've developed a comprehensive strategic plan that guides all that we do. Our plan was developed in conjunction with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and incorporates these values in all areas of the plan. The League's finances exceeded last year's budget. You'll hear more about that later. Thanks to the successful gala that many of you attended and contributed to. We thank our membership, Barb Eddington and Susie Gomes, for making it all possible. We also received PPP loans, which help us keep our staff during the office closing. And we also have a reserve fund of over $200,000, which was strengthened by the success of the gala. But as we come together tonight, we want to paint a picture for the future of the League. Can you imagine our phones ringing with questions from the media about what the League thinks when it comes to new city legislature or regulations? Can you imagine when the mayor insists that the League have a seat at the table when discussing civic engagement? And can you imagine when we get calls from every borough president and all community boards asking us to run workshops?
We believe that now is the time for the League to position ourselves to become the city's premier source of civics education for adults. Yes, there are other organizations in the city trying to fill the gap left in our public school systems when civics education was cut, but there is no one focused on the city's adult population and no one focused on New York City civics. Thanks to Adrian Kivelson, the League literally wrote the book on New York City government. This is our time to make our claim on this position and bring to life our statement that civic engagement begins with civic education. We have started to roll out an education campaign this year with our first segment, Who Makes New York City Run?, which is based on Chapter 2 of What Makes New York City Run, to help voters understand all the various positions up for election this year. You can join in the planning to create more presentations, videos, and interactive tools. We will continue to engage through training sessions to engage the public. We are recruiting translators and interns to make our materials more accessible to more communities in the city.
Your votes tonight are critical to rolling out a robust 3-year financial plan. In the bylaws, you will see that we are looking to lift the cap on the number of members on our advisory board so that we can make that a give and get and broaden our donor support base. In the budget, you will see that while we are forecasting a shortfall for this fiscal year, that's because we are investing in building the capacity and relationships we need to support our future fundraising. Our local program directs us to promote equity in all that we do. It permeates every committee and every activity. Our leadership is actively focused on the fiscal stability that will be the foundation of all of our work. Can we go to the next slide, please? We are so proud to be your co-presidents, but we also need to remember that we are following in the footsteps of some remarkable women, some of whom we have sadly lost over these past 18 months. We want to take a moment to remember Robin Barr, Nikki Heller, and most recently, Laura Altshuler, 3 of our past presidents of the League. We also miss longtime member Phyllis Wells. We miss their wisdom, their guidance, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude. There will be many changes in New York this year. Changes in city government, changes in the way the city moves forward, changes in the way we interact with each other. But some things will never change. League members' enthusiasm and devotion to our mission, to engage and educate New Yorkers to use their collective voices to make New York City a better place. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to serve in this mission. Before we start the business portion of the meeting, I will read the credentials report. We have 326 eligible members. A quorum is 10% or 33 members. We currently have 44 people in attendance, although 4 of those are non-voting because either there's 3 of us who are on twice or somebody who cannot vote. So therefore we technically have 40 people. And we also have 30 proxies, which constitutes a quorum. And therefore I now call this meeting to order. And now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Crystal Joseph, our Vice President of Communications.
Thank you, Leslie. I'll be explaining the business portion of our meeting this evening and what's coming up to be voted on. We'll be voting by using the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, and I'll demonstrate how to use that function right now. You just click on the raised hand feature, an icon will appear in your top left or right-hand corner, and you'll be called on to have a response. Once we call on you, lower your hand and we'll continue the meeting. Our parliamentarian this evening will be Shelley Warwick. There have been some changes in Robert's Rules of Order to accommodate virtual meetings, so we will be following the newly revised 11th edition. Board committee reports, since they have been approved by the board, do not need a second. Amendments to the bylaws need a 2/3 vote by the members present to pass. If members present constitute a quorum, all other motions need a majority to pass. If anyone wants to make a motion or to make a comment during the discussion, please use the reaction button to raise your hand. When you're recognized by the chair, you'll be unmuted and can speak your comments. To keep the meeting moving forward and to make sure all who wish to speak have an opportunity to do so, we ask each person to limit any remarks to 30 seconds. All motions from the floor need a second. Again, tonight's parliamentarian is Shelley Warwick. Now I'll be explaining the 6 items that we'll be voting on this evening. We'll be voting on approval of the minutes from last year's meeting, the open VP and board positions, the budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022, proposed amendments to the bylaws, the local program for the next year, and whether to start a concurrence process. And now I'll introduce Amy Matthews, our board secretary.
Thank you, Crystal, and welcome everybody to the annual meeting. The minutes of last year's annual meeting were included in your packet. You can find them starting on page 23. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Please type motion into the chat function. Oh, I'm sorry, into the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the screen. Do we have a
No, we do not yet have a motion to accept the minutes.
Great. If someone can type it.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Okay, Jane actually has also motioned it. Do we have a second?
I
Please
second
type
it.
in. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a second. That is great. Are there any objections? If there are any objections, please raise your hand using that raise hand function. I don't see any. Do you?
I
Leslie?
see no raised hands.
Beautiful.
Oh, wait, we do have a raised hand. Okay, I will unmute that person. So just to be clear, raising of hands at this point is if you have any objections to accepting the minutes as presented in the packet. If you do not object, I just want to make sure that people are clear about that.
Thank you.
If you do not object to it, please lower your hands. If you do object to it, keep your hands raised and I will find you and unmute you. Okay, well, we seem to have some people who are. Okay, I'm going to allow Beth Kelly to talk. Beth, you are, just unmute yourself. You can now speak.
So I was just raising my hand to vote yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, no worries. We'll get to that.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
No problem. I will mute you again. Okay, we also still have one other person. Thanks, Beth.
Oh.
Wendy Kelly Carter, your hand is raised. Can you please talk about your objection? I've allowed you to talk.
Okay, you need to fix the chat feature. It's disabled. That's why we couldn't write in there.
Yeah, sorry, we're supposed to be using the Q&A.
Oh,
Okay.
Q&A? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry about that.
Wendy, do you have any, is there an objection to the minutes? Or was this?
No objection to the minutes, just wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy. Mary Jenkins has her hand raised, so I'm going to allow Mary Jenkins to talk. Mary, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. The Q&A function is also disabled. And also when I tried to bring up the meeting materials that you sent me back in May, it's now been sent to the trash by the owner. So I don't have any access to anything that's any of the, I don't know if anybody else has that problem. But.
Okay. So I have been getting things in the Q&A, Mary, so I'm not sure that that's an issue because other people have been using the Q&A. However, can somebody please go check that the annual meeting packet is where it's supposed to be? And we will put the link in the chat.
Okay, that will work, hopefully.
But Mary, do you have any objections to accepting the minutes?
I don't think so.
Well, if you do, we'll take a poll. That's all. Otherwise, we will accept them by acclamation.
What
Okay.
we're doing right now, if there are no objections, we don't have to take a poll and vote. If there are objections, we will release a poll and do an actual vote. So Mary, if you want to raise an objection right now,
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, anybody else?
No, no one else has their hand raised.
There seem to be no objections to the minutes as presented. I am going to declare that the minutes were accepted by acclamation. So we do not have to release the poll. And so we have approved the minutes. Next up, I'd like to introduce Kathy Gray, who's our immediate past co-president. She's a board director and chair of the nominations committee. Kathy?
Thank you, Amy. I would like to thank the members of the nominating committee, Laura Quigg, Susie Gomes, and Ruth Altman. We have, next slide, please. The nominating committee submits the following nominations for the position of vice president: Susan Gabriel, to fulfill the remaining term of Ashmi Sheath, who has resigned from the VP of membership. The other items up for from the nomination are for board directors: Patricia Manning, Dorothy Quisnadane, Laura Quigg, and Kai Rosenthal are going to serve a second term, and Deborah Brodheim is joining us for the first term.
Thank you, Kathy. Just a reminder that this is a board committee report, so no seconds are needed. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Please enter any nominations into the Q&A.
Can I just ask if you are actually furiously typing something, please raise your hand so that we are aware that you're typing. Otherwise, we may not be aware.
Okay, do we see any hands, Leslie?
No hands raised, nothing in the Q&A.
Okay, so hearing no nominations from the floor, do I have a motion to accept the slate of nominations as presented?
Paulette Austin has so motioned.
So according to Robert's Rules of Order, I declare the slate proposed by the nominating committee elected by acclamation. We would like to thank our outgoing board director, Bella Wang, and membership VP, Ashmi Sheath, for their dedication and support, especially during this past year. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kathy, and the rest of the nominating committee. I would now like to introduce Susie Gomes, VP of Development, and Leslie Siegel, my co-president.
Before we take our vote on next year's budget, which will be coming up with Leslie, I wanted to share with you our thoughts on a new approach to fundraising. We thank you, all of you, for the giving that you do whenever we do outreach during our Giving Tuesday and year-end appeal events, as well as throughout the whole year. We recognize all of your generosity and are always so very grateful for it. But our one large fundraising event historically has always been our gala, which we have used as our base and buffer to get us through our next fiscal year. But this is not a tenable strategy for us to continue for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is extremely difficult, given our resources, to execute a gala every year. Secondly, as well as we did with the gala this year, and yes, we were extremely pleased with our results, it will never provide us with the funding with which to grow the league and allow us to expand our programming and our reach into the community the way we would all love to do. Therefore, we have designed a 3-year fundraising plan that will provide us with not only a more stable and consistent financial base, but one that will actually allow the league to grow and prosper. As with all long-term plans, we understand that the first year will be our investment year, with which will allow us to get to at least a balanced budget by year 2 and build a stronger reserve fund by year 3. We will not be voting on this plan, but we do encourage you to view it and see it as an opportunity to find a way to get involved with us as we build our financial future. A major component of this 3-year fundraising plan is to help the league move into a position where we can develop and execute that big picture of becoming the resource for adult civics education in New York City, as Diane and Leslie mentioned earlier, as well as continuing to actively participate, advocate, and lobby for the issues we hold dear. This big picture initiative will fill a hole in the city's civics advocacy programs, which all tend to focus on the youth in the city, not the 18+ community who may have missed this education in New York City schools or are newer adult residents to the city. They represent a significant portion of the non-voting population here in the city and or those that feel disenfranchised from the process, and we'd like them to get involved. As for the specifics of fundraising, in lieu of a major gala event this year, we are going to focus on 4 smaller events held quarterly. These events will be thematically noted and embrace a substantial issue or historical moment for either the league, women, or our country. We will also look to tie in with our programming committee as they plan their speaking engagements for the year. But specifically, how will this help us fundraise? Well, in this transition year, we are laying the groundwork to build broader bases of financial support. These include looking to grow our advisory board to gain more support from each of them. We are approaching more corporations to ask for their support for this year's smaller events, as well as tapping into their goal for social responsibility by offering employees volunteerism packages. And finally, we are seeking out and approaching a wider group of grant funders for capacity building funds, as well as supporting our programming activities. All of these will require cultivation of our current contacts and meeting new contacts. We rely on our membership in a variety of ways throughout the year for support. Today, I am asking all of you to help introduce us to your contacts. If you work in a company, introduce us to your HR, marketing, or social responsibility departments. If you have any contacts on foundation boards or funders, come speak with us. And if you'd like to be part of the development committee to work on any of these, as well as this year's events, please join us. You can type into the chat right now with your email or contact me at development@lwvnyc.org. We look forward to hearing from you, all of you. I will now turn the meeting over to Leslie Siegel, who is the chair of the Budget Committee.
Thank you very much, Susie. And thank you. Yes, my name is pronounced like the bird, so thank you, Siegel. Before I start, I would like to thank the members of the Budget and Finance Committee, Susie Gomes, Kathy Gray, Dorothy Uzadane, Laura Quigg, Natalie Silverman, and Jessica Weinberg. Can we go to the next slide, please? So before I talk about the budget, let me talk a little bit about the upcoming year-end financials. So for fiscal year 21, and as a reminder, our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. So therefore, fiscal year 2021 ran from July 1st, 2020, and ends June 30th of this year. So I'm really pleased to announce that we forecast to have $32,000 net this year in the black. That is a $96,000 increase to our budget. And this is really down to our decision to hold a gala this year, as well as an increased focus on grants. But I just want to take a moment to kind of look at the gala. We hadn't been planning to hold one because of the extent of time that it takes, but we were fortunate to have one. We netted about $95,000 from that gala. And I want to take a moment to congratulate everybody who did that. All of you, Barb and Susie, and let's have a virtual round of applause. I'm sure if we were in person, there'd be a standing ovation right now. Moving on, I just want to say there were some adjustments we've made to the forecast, and those are two. One is for the loan forgiveness of our fiscal year 2020 PPP. There was no cash impact for that in fiscal year 21 because we received all the cash in fiscal year 20. And the receipt of our fiscal year 2021 PPP loan, where we have received the cash in 2021, but it's considered a loan and therefore it's on our balance sheet until we get forgiveness, which is expected towards the end of this year, calendar year, or in fiscal 22. Next slide, please. So as you've already heard, fiscal 22 is an investment year where we're going to spend time building the capacity and relationships that we need to support sustained fundraising and development. That's why it's so important that we're able to lift the cap on the advisory board. Our operations coordinator, Beatrice Guerrero, she will be dedicated to supporting our development efforts so that we make sure we have the right infrastructure in place. And by infrastructure, I don't mean computers. We will again not hold a gala in fiscal year 22 because of the effort that it takes and the unsustainability of doing that every year. That is, of course, going to impact revenue. So therefore, we are forecasting to lose about $59,000 this year. We do have a sufficient amount in our reserve fund to cover this. As we said, we have over $200,000. You can see in cash and cash equivalents at the end of March, we had about 282,000. Actually, by the end of May, we had 309,000. So we are at least well positioned to take this as an investment year and then break even or better going forward. Investment revenue, just so you know, it's an average estimate based on the last 3 years of performance. It's a very squiffy number. And a couple of things I do want to focus on in the expenses. One is you will see salaries goes up and contract service expenses goes down. That is just a flip between the two. We're paying somebody one way and now we're going to make them an employee. Facility expenses have gone up. We're currently assuming that we will take back the office space that we had given up, but I want to assure all of you that we are very actively seeking additional alternatives, such as sharing space with our partners, reaching out to our partners to see if they have any space that they can donate to us. And that is something that we will continue. We have an office space needs committee set up, working very actively, and we will see if we can't make up some of the gap there. Okay, so before we get asked for a motion, to accept the budget, I would like to open it up for any questions for clarification. If you have any questions for clarification, please raise your hand and we will allow you to speak. I'll give about 30 seconds for people to start raising their hands. Ruth has a question. Ruth, I've allowed you to talk. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I was curious as to the discussion on the office space. Are you suggesting that you're going to take back the space that you had given up? And is that going to be on a month-by-month basis, or how have you looked at that part of things?
So for the sake of being conservative, we did assume that we would take back that little space that we had given up.
Yeah.
In order to, facilitate a return to in-person activities. Yes, that would be on a month-to-month basis. However, we would not be locked into that. Does that answer your question, Ruth?
Yes, for now that is. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Are there any other questions? Again, please raise your hand if you have any questions for clarification on the budget. Okay. Well, seeing no other hands raised, I will then ask for a motion. I will ask for a motion to accept the budget as presented. We have a motion in the Q&A from Jane Colvin, who moves that the budget be adopted as presented. A reminder that as this is a board recommended item, we do not need a second. We will now release a poll to approve the budget as presented. Please click in favor, opposed, or abstained as soon as you see it on your screen. Okay, I'm going to give everybody, we're still missing a few people, although we're almost at 100%. If anybody has a proxy that they wish to type anything specifically into the chat about, into the Q&A, let me know. Okay, I'm going to, Paulette, I see your hand is up. I will allow you to talk. Can you unmute yourself, please?
I'm sorry, my hand was not up for that. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Okay, I'm going to give everybody 5 more seconds. That will be a minute. We are now at, and I am going to end the poll. Okay, the budget actually passes unanimously. We have 40 yes votes plus 30 proxies. So we have a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Okay, I am now going to turn the meeting over to Shelley Warwick, who is our Technology Vice President and Chair of the Bylaws Committee. Over to you, Shelley.
Okay. I want to thank the committee members, Kate Doran and Amy Matthews, for the work they have done on reviewing the bylaws as they existed. We have agreed upon the amendments, including that are in the meeting packet on page 4, and we have directed me to move their adoption. The amendments, in addition to the number of minor changes, they were made to improve clarity and reinforce intent, or to clearly allow for virtual meetings and non-snail mail communications, as well as to conform with the National and State League bylaws. The basic changes to ensure diversity, add 2 more board directors to help increase diversity at the board level and allow for greater institutional memory, remove the cap on the size of the External Advisory Committee, and increase the league's ability to develop longer-term financial support. Next slide, please. Okay, the basic amendments are in Article 2 to delete the word citizen, to bring our purpose into alignment with that as stated by the national and by the state, which has changed that a year or so ago in order to express their broader mission of education to those beyond who are already citizens, to add the new DEI section, also again in line with the national, clarify what it means to be a student, add 2 appointed board director seats, again, as I said, for greater diversity and institutional memory. Update the quorum language to allow participation by call-in and Zoom, again, in line with the state board bylaws. Added term limits to the board chair, which are in line with the other board positions have term limits. Add a mandate a DEI committee, and remove a cap on the number of advisory board members has been talked about previously. Next slide. And also we've made a number of minor changes, rearranging the section order, correcting spellings, and basically changing a number of articles to allow for communication by electronic means. In terms of requesting the membership list electronically, this does not change how we provide the list, which are only at the meeting, but allows people to make that request through electronic means rather than mailing us a letter. So I return it over to Leslie to ask for a vote.
Before we take a vote, I will open it up the floor for any questions for clarification. So we do have a question for clarification. Jane Colvin is asking, and by the way, you can also raise your hand and I will unmute you, but in this case, thank you, Jane. She wants to know what the current limit on the number of advisory board and whether there would be a new cap or unlimited. Shelley, do you want to take that?
Yes, the current cap, I believe, is 10 members. And with no cap, this would be unlimited, again, because we're starting to look at the advisory board more as a fundraising support rather than as for informational advisement.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you, Jane. Jane says in the Q&A, that's a good idea. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions and we will unmute you. I'll give everybody about 15 seconds to raise their hands. Okay, I'm seeing, I'm sorry, Laura, did you have a question? I've given you permission to talk. Just unmute yourself. Laura Quick.
Sorry, that was a mistake, sorry.
Oh, okay, no worries. I will lower your hand. Thank you. Okay, seeing no questions for clarification, I will launch the poll. Please vote in favor. Oppose. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to call for a motion. I apologize. Is there a motion to accept the bylaw amendments in total as presented? You can either raise your hand or type into the Q&A that you so motion. I'm going to allow Hazel Weiser to speak. Hazel, please just unmute yourself.
I move to accept the changes to the bylaws.
Okay, thank you. We also have a motion from Kate Doran in the Q&A. Do we have any seconds? If you want a second, just feel free to raise your hand.
No second is needed. This is a board motion.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. No second is needed as this is a board motion. It's been recommended by the board. I am now going to launch the poll. So please vote either in favor, opposed, or abstain as soon as I launch the poll and it appears on your screen. A reminder that this does require a 2/3 vote to pass. Okay, I think actually there are a few people who have not voted, so I'll leave it open a little bit longer. Okay, I will continue to leave it open for another 10 or 15 seconds. Ruth has a question. I'm going to allow her to speak. Ruth, please unmute yourself. Ruth Allman.
Thank you. I'm wondering where it is that you'll be counting the proxy votes. Is this one of those areas where you would count the proxy votes?
Yes, the proxy votes will be counted on any of the items for voting.
And then you'll give us a final count?
I will give you a final count, just
Okay.
as I did for the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now, because I think we've got most people voting. Okay, so what we have are 43 in-person votes in favor plus 30 proxies. So that's 73 votes in favor. We have 2 abstentions. The motion to accept the bylaw amendments in total as presented has passed. Great. Okay, so I'm now going to turn this over to Kai Rosenthal, who will take us through our local program. Beatrice, can you just skip ahead to the local program? I know we're a little out of order. Thanks. Keep going. Keep going. There you go.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. The local program committee recommends adopting the following local program: creating greater equity for the people of New York City. Previous league local programs have focused on more narrow issues such as the census or voting reform. However, the past 15 months have been extraordinarily difficult for many people who live and work in New York City, especially for communities of color and lower income families. They were essential workers who could not work from home. They experienced unemployment, healthcare loss, housing and food insecurity, technology instability, among other significant challenges. They faced great inequities before, but the pandemic exacerbated these circumstances and made New York City's most vulnerable even more so. As an organization, we believe that we need to direct our local program to creating greater equity for the people of New York City. We will achieve this goal by working on individual issues across all standing committees, and each committee will determine its area of focus. Through the local program focus, we will seek to advocate for more equity in all areas for the people of New York City. Thank you to everyone who submitted program topics via the website and attended the local program forum. I will now turn it back to Diane, who will open up if there's any discussion.
Thank you, Kai. Are there any questions for clarification only? Please raise your hand.
Can we just, sorry, one question.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, can we just go back to the prior slide where we're not here?
Okay. There we go. Okay, so are there any questions for clarification only? Please raise your hand using the raise hand function and we will unmute you.
I see we have, oh, nope, somebody raised their hand and then they quickly lowered it.
Okay. So seeing no questions for clarification.
Wait, there is some,
okay.
Somebody keeps raising their hand and lowering it.
Gladys.
Oh, okay.
Ruth.
I can't tell who it is. Okay, now we have a couple of people. I'm going to allow Gladys Krasner to speak. Gladys, please unmute yourself.
I am amazed how beautifully this is going. I don't know. I want clarification on what the committees will be doing. I have no idea of what we're talking about.
So Gladys, specifically for the local program, do you mean?
Good evening, Lily.
Yes. So
yes.
What the local program is going to do is we've asked all the standing committees to address creating greater equity. So at this time, at the next meeting of the chairpersons of all the committees with the board, they're going to submit their topics. And then as well as a plan, and we will check in with them quarterly to see the progress that they are making on this issue. So they will come up with issues specific to their topics. So for education, it will be the education committee, it will be specific to education, but always keeping in mind creating greater equity for the people of New York City. Is that clear?
Will it be program? Why would it be a program that we have approved of, or will it need approval before we go forward?
You want me to jump in on that, Kai? Gladys, hi. I think that's going to depend on whether or not we can, what they're working on falls under existing positions or not. I think we learned our lesson this year. If it falls under an existing position at either the local, state, or national level, then the membership will not need to come back and approve it. If, however, it does not, then we will either need to create a new position and do a study, which the membership would have to approve of, or if there's another local league that we can concur with, we would go through that process. But again, the membership would then have to approve that. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Gladys. Okay, Ruth Altman also has her hand raised. Ruth, you can speak. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, that was kind of my question too, because it seemed like such a vague pronouncement. I wasn't sure where we were going with that. But just to clarify in my own mind, let's say Voter Services has an aspect of things that they feel that they can contribute to this change, and then they will present it to the board, and then the board will present it to the league membership. I mean, how is a specific suggestion going to proceed in your mind?
So again, if it falls under an existing position, then either, like, for example, if it's just around increasing accessibility to voting sites, for example, then yes, I think the committees themselves can act on that. If there's something that we haven't worked on before, it would come to the board of directors if it falls under an existing position. If it does not fall under an existing position, we'll go through the steps I spoke about with Gladys. Does that make sense, Ruth?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other hands raised. I know we're going to be voting on this momentarily. However, our guest speaker has come, so I'm going to end this, take a pause right now, turn it over to Pat Manning, and we'll come back and take the vote afterwards. And then we'll take more questions.
Thank you very much. We can now thankfully fulfill our promise and hear from our very special guest speaker, Dr. Louise Mirror, President and CEO of the New York Historical Society. In part, Dr. Mirror will present on a new installation at New York Historical Society that is directly related to LWVNYC. Dr. Mirror joined the New York Historical Society as president and CEO in June 2004. Under her guidance, the institution has reinvigorated its commitment to greater public understanding of history and its relevance today, as well as to the support and encouragement of historical, scholarship and the education of young people. Under her direction, the New York Historical Society has launched groundbreaking exhibitions such as Slavery in New York, Nuevo York, Chinese American Inclusion, Exclusion, and the Vietnam War. As president and CEO, she oversaw a $100 million capital campaign completed in 2011 and the inauguration in 2017 of the first ever Center for Women's History within the walls of an American museum. She has also initiated special projects on citizenship and the presidency and has overseen the expansion of the institution's visitorship to nearly 500,000 annually. Dr. Mirror's research focuses on historical narrative, and she has authored 4 books and numerous articles. Further, she was inducted into the Crain's New York Business Hall of Fame in 2018 and became a member of the Council on Foreign Relations in 2017. And now it is with great enthusiasm I present to you Dr. Louise Mirror. Following, we will have a Q&A period. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very, very nice and flattering introduction. Obviously, I've had many, many partners over my time at New York Historical, and I am very proud to say today that the League of Women Voters has been a really wonderful partner. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your partnership and the collaboration that we'll speak about this evening. I am wearing a gift I was presented with yesterday. I hope you can see it. It's my vote necklace. I've been wearing it all day to much acclaim and commentary and compliments. So thank you very, very much indeed for that. We could not be more grateful to the League of Women Voters for our Lady Pink mural. We unveiled the mural and celebrated the acquisition and its display right opposite our new technology center yesterday morning. And already passersby are exclaiming over its beauty and its meaning, its tremendous meaning. So this mural was really a dream come true. And we actually had a collections committee meeting this morning with some of our trustees. And one of my colleagues explained how, in fact, one of her colleagues in our education department had been dreaming about this mural and saying how wonderful it would be to be able to display it and to inspire young people to vote with it, with its beauty and its symbolism. And it was only, I think, 48 hours later that the call came and the possibility arrived that we might actually be able to acquire this beautiful mural. And so we have, and we are thrilled, and I'm thrilled to talk a little bit about how we plan to use the mural. First of all, it is, as I said before, an inspiration in and of itself. It is there, it is impossible to miss as you face the wall opposite our Education Commons or Tech Commons, which is really the main place where our teen scholars, all of our teen interns and all of the teens who work with us, and there are very, very many of them, come. It's the gathering place for teens. And those are young people who in the main cannot yet vote, but are almost there, are close to being there. So it is extremely important to inspire those young people and to really explain to them what it means to be a citizen, what their civic duty is, and the various symbols embedded in the mural do that beautifully, apart from its general appeal and attractiveness, especially its graffiti style for young people. So that is where the mural is featured and will be featured. And it will become an adjunct to another program that we have, our Academy for American Democracy, which teaches 30,000 New York City public school sixth graders about democracy and citizenship each year. It's a wonderful program. It marries the curricular content in sixth grade New York State, actually schools around the ancient world, talks about the earliest known democracy, to the extent it was a democracy, in Athens, and then allows students to understand how our American founders took some of those ideas around democracy and implemented them in this nation. So the mural will become embedded in the curriculum that we use, and it will be a part of an education program that, again, helps very young students, in this case, sixth graders. They've got a while before they can vote, but they're on the way and they're getting prepared. And we will bet that when they reach the voting age, they will understand that it is their civic duty as Americans to exercise this wonderful right we have in this nation of voting. The mural is also a perfect pairing with another work we have in our collection by another immigrant artist, Nari Ward, a Jamaican-born naturalized American citizen. He did a wonderful piece for us, which spells out "We the People" with shoelaces that were donated by many, many people. And it was a project in which our teen scholars participated along with him. So we have, sort of these bookends of creativity, but also artistic expression of two naturalized citizens who understand in a particular way the importance of taking seriously one's rights as an American citizen. We also plan to use the mural when we talk about art as activism, and that is an important theme in our all of our education programs. We have done many exhibitions that are expressive of the use of art in order to convey a particular point of view, to persuade people. We have spoken about about poster art, and of course, in our 4th floor Luce Center, which is right around the corner, we have a wonderful installation around graffiti, which conveys to all of our visitors the artistic expression in a particular way and as a particular form of activism. The inclusion of both Black and white suffragists in the mural is a very powerful statement in the context of the work that we do with teachers who are in the main New York City public school teachers whose student bodies are tremendously diverse. So the inclusion, which is a part of the mural, is extremely important and establishes a dynamic that invites young people into the work of art and into the American story in its most vivid way. We have an totally online women's history curriculum, which is used in all 50 states now. It's fully online, and it tells many different stories, American stories, with women at the center. It's the antidote to textbooks, which in our last survey included women in only 13% of their narratives around American history. And of course, we know that women were present all the time, 50% of the population. And though they may not always have had agency, they certainly had participation. So, so this is extremely important as well. And we have a summer student historians program, which is actually about to start up, and they will be greeted right away. In fact, I'm doing the orientation for them next week, and they will be greeted right away with this marvelous expression of citizenship. And we know that it will inspire them to do their very best work with us. Physically, when you come to the museum, and those of you who did, you will see that the mural is displayed right around the corner from our replica Oval Office and our Meet the Presidents gallery. So this is a very nice cluster of civic engagement especially for our young people, but for all visitors. So once again, I want to thank you and say how important this work is. And yes, indeed, we were very proud yesterday to formally acknowledge this very important acquisition, and for me to formally acknowledge this wonderful gift of my newest regular jewelry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mira. We were so grateful to you for inviting us to the installation yesterday. So thank you again. So now will you take some questions from our—
Sure, I'd be happy to take some questions if there are any.
Great. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will unmute you.
Maybe while we wait, I'll just jump in for a quick question. When you were talking, Louise, about women and the online project, are you hopeful? Do you really feel that women that we're rising, that we're going to see more of that 50%, 50-50 in government, politics, business? What is your feeling on it?
Well, I think we have, we've seen movement in Congress. We've seen the pendulum swing one way and the other way as well. But I do think, I really do think that women have made a lot of progress, great strides, and that, we have a wonderful citizenship project where we help green card holders to learn what they need to learn to pass the citizenship test. And we hold, as a result, regular naturalization ceremonies. And I was kind of tickled that the first gentleman is going to be our featured speaker at our next naturalization ceremony. So, you know, I mean, this isn't about a woman, obviously, he's the first gentleman, but the first time we've ever had a first gentleman, because it's the first time we've ever had a female vice president. So I do think we've made strides, and I'm an optimistic person by nature, but I do feel optimistic about women being truly a part of officialdom in the United States.
Thank you.
So we do have a couple of questions. We only have a couple of minutes left, but Kathy Gray, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Yeah, Louise, thank you very much for yesterday. My question is concerning the ERA, which is going to be having its 100th birthday in 2023. Are you going to have some kind of celebration for that?
We certainly will. We certainly will. I know that we will do panel. We will have panel discussions and certainly draw attention to it. Probably have a display. My most vivid recollection is having had Ruth Bader Ginsburg speaking in our auditorium and someone asking, "What do we really still need the ERA?" Her answer made it very clear. Yeah, we do.
Great, thank you. And we have one more question. And so I'm going to, Rosalind Richter, I'm going to unmute you. I'm sorry, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. And then we will be at time. Rosalind, can you please unmute yourself? Rosalind, if you're having trouble unmuting yourself, you can also type your question into the Q&A.
Meanwhile, we do have a question about the naturalization ceremonies, if we can know when they will be doing this so that perhaps we can register voters.
Yes, and you have in the past, actually. So I will double back with you on that.
Thank you.
That has been, yeah. I mean, we've got a little distracted from, what has been normal in the past with, all the COVID long hibernation period. But thank you very much for mentioning that. That has been an extremely important adjunct to our naturalization ceremonies.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so unfortunately, Rosalind seems to have technical difficulties. So unfortunately, Rosalind, perhaps you can email us your question afterwards and we can try to get an answer.
Well, thank you very much again for the opportunity to talk to you and for this marvelous acquisition. I hope all of you come back often to visit it and to actually see how it's being appreciated and enjoyed. So thanks so very much.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to now turn back the meeting to the question of the local program. I saw some hands were raised before we went to our guest speaker, and so I'm going to ask Suzanne Stasevich. Suzanne, you are allowed to talk. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, I just had a question. You've outlined what you want the committees to do. When they make their choices and decide on their programs, are they going to have to get at least bring it before the board or somebody to make sure if this is agreed to by the membership that these are the guidelines they're following?
I'll take that. Yes, Suzanne, again, I think it depends. If it's a well-known position that's already held, that we've already taken actions on, then no. But for anything else, then yes, they need to minimally bring it to the board to determine if it falls under an existing position at either the local, state, or national level. And otherwise, we have to go through the steps of concurrence and or a study. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Okay.
Because
maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
Yes, what you're asking is that they keep their focus on equity. And that's what I was asking, who's going to sort of make sure that the committees are keeping their focus with what you're asking us to approve.
I understand. Yes, that will be reported to the board regularly, and we will ensure that they are working against that goal.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Seeing no hands raised, I will now launch the poll. I please ask you again to vote in favor, oppose, or abstain once you see the poll on your screen. Okay, I think at this point, actually everyone, except maybe one person has voted. I will leave it up for another 15 seconds. Oh God, I did forget to call for a motion. I'm sorry. We did have a motion from Deb Brodheim. I really apologize. I won't make you all vote again. We do have a motion to adopt the local program as accepted. We don't need a second again because it is a board recommended item. Okay, so with that, I'm going to end the poll. We had in person 39 votes in favor. We had 3 opposed and 1 abstention. We also have somebody who has joined the call who had submitted a proxy. So instead of 30 proxies in favor, we have 29. So that is 68 in favor, 3 opposed, and 1 abstention. And I will share the results quickly so you can see. And with that, I will turn this over to Diane Drew and Alex Yellen.
Good evening. Alex and I are asking for a review of non-citizens' voting rights for lawful New York City permanent residents in municipal elections. Currently, there's a bill pending in the New York City Council. The bill is 1867-22. And the bill is to amend the New York City Charter to allow legal permanent residents to vote in municipal elections. The League of Women Voters in Boulder County adopted a position on non-citizen voting rights. We would like to establish a committee to review the position held by our sister league of Boulder County on non-citizen voting rights, as well as review the materials supporting the Boulder County position. Our goal is to determine whether to hold a concurrence with our league membership. This is not a vote to concur on the position, only to begin the review on whether to hold or not to hold a concurrence with the League of Women Voters of Boulder County. We expect this review of the League of Women Voters Boulder County position to take around 4 to 6 weeks, and we will hold a concurrence according to the league bylaws. So this is a vote, just to focus again, it's a vote on establishing a committee with the purpose of reviewing the League of Women Voters Boulder County position on non-citizen voting rights.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, so at this point, we're going to move into questions for clarification on the process, after which we will move into debate and discussion. So right now, what I would ask is if anybody has a clarification on the process only, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Please hold off on any discussions of the merits of holding the review until we get through questions for clarification. Are there any questions for clarification? I see Rochelle Stearns. Rochelle, I'm going to allow you to speak. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I do not have a question. Sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay. No problem. Thank you very much. Okay. Again, if anybody has questions for clarification only, please raise your hand. I see Barb Eddington. I will unmute you, Barb. Well, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, just to clarify, it reads establish or enable a committee. I don't remember those wordings when we voted on that. Has that been changed? And can you clarify if we are establishing a new committee or it's going back to voter reform committee?
I'll speak to that, I guess, Amy, unless you want to jump in. I think because we initially presented to the membership the establishment, that is what we would have to do.
I can also see it as a subcommittee of the voter reform committee.
It just has to be a new committee. That's what we said we would, that's what we presented to the membership. That's all. Okay, Barb, does that answer your question? Barb?
Yes, thank
Barb,
you.
I'm gonna, thanks. Okay, you can lower your hand. Okay, next up, we have Ruth Altman, who has a question for clarification. Ruth, I've allowed you to talk.
Thank you.
Please unmute yourself.
Yes, you talk about the Boulder, Colorado position. For clarification in terms of the overall issue, would it not be appropriate to include perhaps a research on those cities or places in the states where they had suggested it, but that it got voted down as to not allow it to happen, so that we have a full picture of the pros and the cons of what went before in other locales?
Certainly. Good point. And I think once we've done a thorough review of the Boulder County position, which they have in turn have done the pros and cons and have reached out, they have a list of cities that have and have not allowed non-citizens to vote in municipal elections. So that question could be better addressed once we've put together a review of the Boulder County position.
Okay. We do also have, sorry, Ruth, does that answer your question?
Well, I'm still confused. It appears as though you're going to do a rounder look at things with Boulder first and then maybe the others afterwards. I'm not clear on that.
No, sorry not to be clear. Boulder County has done a thorough review, a thorough research and study. And what we want to do is review their study in depth. And part of their study was a history of enfranchisement from the beginning of our country to now, and also where non-citizens have been voting in municipal elections.
But I'm still looking.
I think we need to stick to the process.
Okay, I'm still looking for the other side of it. You're going to rely, I'm understanding, you're going to rely, if we go forward on this, you're going to rely on what Boulder County did in their research, as opposed to our doing our own research?
Excuse me, Ruth, I'm going to interrupt as parliamentarian. Under what is notified to the membership, which is the only thing we can consider, is the motion to look at the concurrence with Boulder. There is no other motion on the table at the moment. So to look at other things would be an additional motion, which we haven't given any. You would have to make that as a motion. This is the motion as it exists now, which we're giving notification to our members.
And Ruth, I just want to reassure you that Boulder has done a thorough study. So your point has been covered in their study. And what we want to do is review it. That's what we're talking right now, is to start the process of reviewing their study.
We're now moving into discussing the merits of whether or not we should hold the review. So I'd like to move back to questions for clarification on the process. There was a question by Kate Doran in the Q&A. She actually asks that we cite the section of the bylaws. So I don't have the exact section number, Kate, but what we're talking about is the requirement to give members notice, at least 2 months notice before holding a special meeting of membership. And I believe it's at least 1 month's notice of the materials that will be reviewed at the special meeting of membership. And next, I see Jane Colvin has her hand raised. Jane, I will allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself.
Will do. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Great. I have a question about how many members will be on that committee and how will they be chosen?
Well, we haven't, well, once we approve establishing the committee, then we can come back with you and tell you who will be on it, etc. It'll be open to league members.
Yes, I'm sorry, Diane, this will be part of the process of the operation of the committee, which I think is relevant here. So how many members and how would they be chosen?
I think that it will be chosen by people who will be interested in this position and would want to participate in the committee.
So we would send out a communication, Diane, to our membership. Again, we would only have members on this, to our membership to allow them to self-select in. Is that right?
Yes.
We would, yes, okay. So we would communicate with our membership, Jane, and let people volunteer themselves to be on the committee. So that way we would cover a broad representation of the league membership.
Well, I'm just very interested in equitable participation.
No, we do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We want all voices.
Absolutely.
And opinions welcome.
And it might be a big committee.
It might be. Okay, thank you. All right, again, questions for clarification only. I see Gladys Krasner. Gladys, I will allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself. Gladys? Gladys, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My statement is not for clarification. I will be speaking.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand. We will get to that in a moment. All right. Thank you, Gladys. Seeing no other hands raised at this point, I'm going to call questions closed. We're also, have time constraints. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move into debate. We're initially allowing 10 minutes for debate. And what we will do is we will ask people who wish to speak pro or con to enter their name and whether they wish to speak pro or con in the Q&A. You do not have to let us know what your pro or con statement is in the Q&A. We will recognize you and unmute you. I will ask you to also raise your hand so that I can easily find you. And what we will do is we will take pro, con, et cetera, in order. Now, if at the end of if before the end of 10 minutes, if somebody wishes to call the question, if you wish to call the question, which means that we would take a vote on whether or not we would end debate and move into the vote itself to approve or reject the proposal, then please type into the Q&A your name and that you move to call the question. In addition, the membership can also decide to extend time on the debate. So if at the end of 10 minutes, we have a desire to have more debate, somebody can also motion to extend the debate. Again, same practice, please enter your name and your motion to extend the debate into the Q&A. In both cases, we will need seconds. And then we will take a quick vote these votes to either call the question or to extend debate, we will do by hand raising. Sorry, I'm a little tired tonight. I had a long day at work. Again, if you wish to speak pro or con, in addition to raising your hand so that we can do this in order, please also enter into the Q&A your desire to speak pro or con. So type your name and then either pro or con.
Just a reminder that the pro and con is not on the issue, but on whether or not to form the committee. Pro for the committee, con against forming the committee, not an addressing of the actual issue.
That's right. Yes, we will. Exactly. Thank you, Shelley. We will, if people start discussing the merits of non-citizens voting rights itself, we will stop that part of the discussion. We want to focus our discussion solely on the merits of whether or not we should establish a committee to perform the review of whether or not we should concur. I hope that's clear to everybody. Ruth, I know you've got your hand raised. Can you please type into the Q&A whether or not you wish to speak pro or con? Okay, so right now we have one person who wishes to speak pro, Paulette Austin. Paulette, I'm going to enable you to speak. And you can unmute yourself. And please also raise your hand if you wish to speak pro or con, in addition to putting it into the Q&A so that I can find you easily in the list of people. Thank you. Go ahead, Paulette.
Okay, I believe that the League of Women Voters of New York should form a committee to review the whole issue of whether legal permanent residents should be given the right to exercise a vote. I think this is in line with our creating greater equity. I feel New York City will benefit because we have lots of legal permanent residents.
Sorry, Paulette, you have to speak to forming the committee, not onto the issue.
I just said that. I believe that the League of New York should form a committee because this is in line with our whole move of creating greater equity. Same as Colorado did, and I'm sure that we will come to the conclusion that a group of residents who pay taxes should have some say, at least in the local level.
That you're talking to the issue, not to the vote, whether or not.
I think we should, but you said a reason why. The reason why is permanent residents, legal permanent, pay taxes like legal citizens, and they should have a chance of exercising.
As parliamentarian, I have to ask you to stop. You only can talk to forming the committee, not to the issue.
Okay.
You only can talk to forming the committee, not to the issue.
Thank you. I already spoke that I believe we should form the committee, which would be in line with our move to create greater equity in.
Okay, thank you, Paulette.
Okay, I'm going to.
Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Okay, next we have, do we have any more pros? We also have another con. I'm sorry, we have our first con from Gladys Krasner. Gladys, I will allow you to talk again to the merits of whether or not we should establish a committee to form a review. Please unmute yourself.
I do not think the parliamentarian will allow me to continue with what I'm going to say. I'll try, but I think, Shelley, you're going to rule me out of order. I have to tell you why I'm against the committee. A month or so ago, I initiated a controversy because I was outraged, really outraged, by the way in which the Voter Reform Committee and our leadership informed us about the issue. At the same time, there was a burst of anti-Asian violence, and it made it seem almost racist in the connotation. They asked membership to lobby council.
I mean, I'm sorry, Gladys, I do have to interrupt you. Can you speak to saying why you don't think this committee should be formed?
I think the committee should not be reformed because I think the issue is not one that the league should be handling. And I'll give you the reasons when you allow me to speak on it, okay?
Okay, that will happen if we decide to have a concurrence, yes or no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, does anybody else wish to speak pro? Please. Okay, I have somebody who actually wishes to speak pro. Bella Wang wishes to speak pro. Bella, I'm going to allow you to speak. So please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you. Yes, so speaking on behalf of the Voter Reform Committee, we brought this forward as a thing to put, to the board as something to potentially consider. I apologize for the crying baby in the background. Arising out of a bill that is, in City Council is 31 co-sponsors, and there is a current movement among some groups that we know pretty well, such as the New York Immigration Coalition, to push for a hearing on this issue, and therefore, we feel that, this is an issue that is in our city, is in our purview. It's about the vote. We have Legal Women Voters our name. And therefore, we have been interested in the idea of doing a review of this, particularly given that I think we ought to have an opinion, whether yes or no, on a bill that, is happening right now. and that concerns many of organizations that we have had contact with over the course of, doing voter registration and voter education throughout the city. We've worked with a lot of members of this coalition, for instance, ALDEF, Pure ALDEF, a lot of these organizations. Therefore, I think it behooves us to at least consider the situation and decide, if we want to take a position or not actively after doing some research. Furthermore, I think, with the bylaws amendments and local program that we've discussed today, there have been mention in both of things like DEI and equity. The bylaws changed the language with regard to citizens to conform with national. And given all of that, I think it's pretty reasonable that we form a committee to hash this out and take a position on something that's happening in our city. Thanks.
Thank you, Bella. And one thing I should say is, everybody, you have a minute to speak, so just an FYI. Okay, so Barb, I will call on you next. I will allow you to talk. You wish to speak, Khan. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to be voting no tonight on further study by our New York City League. I believe that this study should be done, but at the national level. I think that this is a naturalization issue, which should be done at the national level, and then we would have a position to go forward with. If you want a further study on this, this is not what we're voting on tonight. This is not a full study. Know that. The second point I wanted to make was I'm very proud of the League as it's fighting voter fraud in courts across the country. And I believe our reputation in these cases is based on fighting all voter fraud, which includes claims about non-citizens voting. I really believe if we move forward, we could be doing damage to our credibility and our reputation as the League, and may even raise more claims of voter fraud. I think your vote tonight is about the League and not about your opinion on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, we have a request from Dorothy Uzadane to speak pro. Dorothy, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I would like to speak pro for creating the committee to review the Boulder, Colorado, because I believe as a League of Women Voters that if there is an issue our city council is planning to take up on voting, whether it is for citizens or non-citizens, it is something that we do need to look into. I believe it's our obligation to create this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to allow Ruth Altman to talk. Khan. Ruth, I've allowed you to speak. Please unmute yourself. Ruth Altman, please unmute yourself. You can speak your con. Also, Adrian, I see you want to speak, but can you please let me know whether you wish to speak pro or con so we can go in order? And same thing with Hazel Weiser in the Q&A. Please just type whether you wish to speak pro or con. Ruth, are you able to unmute yourself? All right, Ruth, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening. If you wish to type your con into the Q&A, I will read it out for everybody. Okay, so now because we didn't get this con, I will go to Hazel Weiser, who wishes to speak. Oh, okay, Ruth unmuted herself, sorry, muted herself by mistake. Ruth, please unmute yourself and speak your con. Ruth?
Thank you.
Okay, Ruth.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
That was my touching the wrong thing at the wrong time, or the right time. I would like to say that it is a very important issue, but in my mind, I would tend to feel very strongly that it's not just a New York City issue. It's a much broader issue. And I think that we should present this as such and have either the state or national look into this, because they have the resources, I think, that are available and the input that would be available to help us decide. Because I don't think we should take this issue, considering New York City is the size it is of the population, that we should take it upon ourselves to compare to Boulder, or to actually explore what other cities are doing, and not to do this now, to look further into it before we make the decision as to whether to go forward. I think it's a bit premature. And with all due respect to the city council has its role and we have our role, and they haven't yet actually voted on it. So I don't know that everything that they decide to vote on, we need to support or look into. And I think this, again, as others have said, this is a citizenship issue. It's a national issue. And I think that we ought not to be involved in it at this time. Thank you.
Okay, now we're talking about the merit. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to now call on Natalie Silverman to speak pro, and then I think we have one more pro, two more cons before we hit our 10 minutes. If somebody wishes to extend the time, or if somebody wishes to call the question, they can also enter that into the Q&A.
Leslie, we're at 10 minutes now.
Oh, okay. I was hoping we'd have 5 of each. Does somebody wish to motion to extend time?
I move to extend time.
Do we have a second? Okay, can I ask people to please, if you currently have your hands raised, please unraise your hands. I'll actually lower all hands. You can raise them again. I will ask people who wish to vote in favor of extending time, let's say we extend it for another 10 minutes, to please raise their hand. Okay, we currently have 21 people. We actually have 20 people who have raised their hands. There are 40 people present. I'm not really sure what to do with the proxies in a case like this, but
majority.
Okay, majority.
Unless,
yeah, so yep. We actually do not have a majority of the people present. We have 19 and we currently have, oh God, let me do math in my head. 47. So the motion fails and we will move to a vote. Thank you all. I will now bring up the poll to approve or reject the motion on concurrence. So again, once I launch the poll, please say in favor, opposed, or abstain on your screen. There you go. Okay, how many people voted? Okay. Okay, I'm going to give everybody 15 more seconds. We're still missing a few people who have not voted in person. Okay. I will end the poll. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm sorry, people are still motioning to extend time, but we voted on extending time and the motion failed. So we moved to the, oh fuck, I forgot to call, sorry guys, I'm gonna have to relaunch this. I forgot to call for a motion to accept the, I'm gonna relaunch this one. Sorry, everybody. Is there a motion to approve the concurrence, to approve that we should establish a committee to decide whether or not to hold a concurrence with the Boulder position? Is there a motion?
I move to establish a committee for concurrence on the Boulder.
Okay, so Bella Wang has actually motioned to do so. Do we have a second? Please raise your hand.
No, didn't need a second. This was put forth, was a board motion.
Oh, this was put forth by the board. Okay, so we did need a second on this one. But anyway, we have some seconds. Thank you very much. I will now relaunch the poll. I truly apologize, everybody. Please vote again. Okay, I'll give it 10 more seconds. We're still missing a few people voting. Okay, that's it. I'm going to end the poll. Okay, so for people who are present, we have 23 people voting in favor. We have 18 people opposed. Those are the people present. For the proxies, we have 7 people opposed and 21 people in favor. So that means we have 44 in favor and 25 opposed. The motion passes. I will share the results. Okay. Thank you very much. So this concludes the business portion of our meeting. Yay.
Yay.
Now I would like to introduce a special video presentation by Sheila Hosny and the Students Inside Albany attendees. Can we please launch the video? Beatrice, you need to actually, when you share your screen to do this, you need to include sound and video. So when you go, can you go back to share your screen? And at the bottom right, sorry, bottom left corner, there's a way to share your sound.
Hello, fellow members of the New York City League of Women Voters. I've been asked to speak to you briefly now about a New York statewide League of Women Voters youth program created in Albany 2001, and it was honored with a prestigious Power the Vote Award during the US League's annual meeting in 2012. My time on this tape is limited, and so I'll explain the bare bones, non-COVID times version of Students Inside Albany. The who, what, where, when, and how of Students Inside Albany, shortened to SIA. Number 1, who may attend? About 60 high school students from across New York State may attend. Number 2, what is the non-COVID restricted conference like? It includes 4 full days of instruction in New York State government, plus lessons on lobbying and how to do it. And of course, there are scheduled breaks for relaxation and fun for the teens. Number 3, what are the criteria for a student's acceptance? The basic criterion for a teen to attend is excellence in their academic record, recommendation by their high school teacher, and the teen must show an interest in activism, and a local league must recommend the teen. Where does the program happen? SIA occurs in and around the city of Albany, New York. When does it occur? Annually, the program occurs in the month of May after all New York State compulsory exams are finished. How is Students Inside Albany financed? SIA is completely free for students attending. The costs associated with 1 student per league are financed by the Albany League's Education Foundation, with the exception for round-trip transportation, which is financed by the sending LWV local league. So now, this was a very short description of the Students Inside Albany. There are 2 longer excellent videos of SIA, and their web address will be listed on the tape that you're watching now. Now it's time for you to meet the 3 accomplished New York City high school students who, because of COVID restrictions, attended this year's virtual SIA Zoom conference broadcast from Albany, New York. Goodbye, fellow members.
I absolutely loved attending the Students Inside Albany conference. I learned so much about how state government works, who has a prominent role in politics, and what young people can do to get involved in this work. I found the programming to align perfectly with my specific interests, and I particularly enjoyed hearing from members of the press because of my passion for journalism. Meeting with Senator Breslin is an experience that I will never forget, and I feel so lucky to have been able to speak with him. This experience was so valuable not only because I got to learn firsthand what a state senator does every day, but also because it disproved misconceptions that I had previously held about government officials. Rather than being intimidating or arrogant, he was just a regular, friendly guy with children and interests outside of his incredible profession. I appreciated how much of an effort he made in getting to know each and every one of us and answering all of our questions. It also struck me to hear from and connect with the other students in the program. I remember that hearing about their experiences in politics and how they found out about the program made me realize how out of touch I was with students of my same age, state, and passion for politics. It made me feel empowered to be in an environment devoted to educating and elevating young people. I feel lucky to have taken part in such a memorable, educational, and exciting experience, and I look forward to hopefully being a part of it again next year.
Hi, my name is Kyle, and I attended this year's Students in Albany conference. It was very fun and informative, and I'm very glad I went. My favorite moments would have to be talking to State Senator Neil Breslin. And even though my state assembly person did not show, it was very nice talking with the students in the breakout room just about politics and what we thought about the current state of American politics. And sometimes it's hard to find people, like-minded people to talk about that with, but it turns out that we agreed on a lot of things. And with Congressman Breslin, it was fascinating to hear what inspired him to become a state senator, what he values as a state senator, and what he sees as the state government's roles in the lives of its citizens.
Hello, my name is Alexa Kitian, and I had the pleasure of attending the first virtual Students at Albany experience. During this time, I was able to meet the Director of Community Affairs for Patricia Fahey, Miss Michalina Kuleza. Meeting her was incredibly enlightening, considering that she showed us how much work is actually done by the elected officials group. In addition, we discussed the imperative discipline from January to June, since this is the most efficient and valuable time for representatives. After speaking to Ms. Kuleza, I also had the opportunity to speak with Senator Neil Breslin. He spoke of his job as a responsibility to help and protect other people. Personally, I am most satisfied with his response, considering that there are so many officials that don't think twice after the people have voted for them. Speaking to these professionals was an incredible experience. However, something I truly appreciated was when a former student shared his own journey in encouraging others to vote through art. This student explained that he had written and participated in plays which portrayed certain laws or moments that citizens should be aware of. As a fellow artist, this inspired me to consider using my art to educate others. Overall, Students at Albany was wonderful, and I am immensely appreciative for the opportunity. Thank you all.
I hope you all enjoyed that wonderful video and got a sense of how fantastic this experience has been for our students. So right now, what I'd like to do is turn the meeting back to Diane Burrows to take directions to the board.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. And that was certainly inspirational listening to those kids. So at this point, we are going to take directions to the board. Directions to the board is the time during the meeting when members have an opportunity to provide guidance to the incoming board. Please be assured that your comments will be recorded in the annual meeting minutes and will be discussed at the first board meeting of the new fiscal year. Please raise your hand and we will unmute you so you may speak and give your direction to the board. Please announce your name before you speak. You can also type a comment in the chat function if you would prefer. If you do
Q&A
not,
function.
I'm sorry, Q&A function, sorry. If you do not have time to speak this evening, you may also email your direction to the board at secretary@lwvnyc.org. Again, that's secretary@lwvnyc.org. The newly elected board will discuss these at the first meeting as we discussed. So I will now, with help from Leslie, take directions to the board.
Okay. Currently, we have no non-board members wishing to give directions to the board. Again, please raise your hand if you wish to. I will unmute you. And I would ask as well, as if you make a direction to the board verbally, you would please email it to secretary@lwvnyc.org as well. Gladys Krasner has a direction to the board. Gladys, I have given you permission to speak. Please unmute yourself.
I feel that there is a lack of history of the league and also a lack of how the three levels of the league function. I would ask the board to initiate a series of orientation meetings for membership. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys.
Are there any other directions to the board at this time? Please raise your hand. I'll give you 30 seconds. Tony Coffey wishes to give a direction to the board. Tony, I have allowed you to speak. Please unmute yourself.
This isn't exactly direction to the board, but it follows on what Gladys was just saying, that we need to remember the league's history. The reason I wasn't at my screen a few minutes ago when you had a poll and I missed it was I was trying to find in my files the records of the annual luncheons that we used to have, because there was a luncheon somewhere around 2007 when Louise Mirror was one of the women of distinction whom we honored. And it seems as if that has faded into history. It certainly should have been mentioned when in the introduction, her introduction earlier. And I hope somebody can find that file on the history of the luncheons and keep a record of the people that we have honored over the years, because it's a very valuable record and a very useful connection to maintain. I have no other direction for the board. I think you've got your hands full as it is.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, I see Gladys Krasner has another direction to the board. Gladys, I've enabled you to speak. Please unmute yourself.
I want to tell Tony, as one of the members of the fundraising committee, that we do have a list that is available of all the honorees and the year they were honored. I am sorry it was not mentioned today by anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys.
Are there any further? Kate Doran wishes to give a direction to the board. Kate, I have enabled you to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very kindly. I would suggest that the board consider carefully Sheila Hosny's wonderful role over the years in Students Inside Albany, and consider a similar program in New York City. We could title it Students at City Hall, or Students Inside City Hall, or Students at the City Council. I think it would be a marvelous program, and members would enjoy that as much as they enjoy registering voters.
Thank you, Kate.
I see no further hands raised at this time. So at this time, what we would like to do is move on to our closing remarks and our thank yous. So the first thing that we would, I'm sorry, there is something from Mary Jenkins in the Q&A. Will committee meetings and programs continue to be done on Zoom as well as live in the future? Mary, that is definitely one of the things we're thinking of. Thank you. Okay, moving on to closing remarks at our awards gifts. So if we can please move to, I think, to the next slide. At this time, we would like to thank our amazing staffers. I was wrong, move back, thank you. Natalie Silverman, our program administrator, Beatrice Guerrero, our new operations coordinator, and Tyra Vianette, our social media and graphic design coordinator. The three of you represent the triumvirate of professionalism anchoring our work. You've done it all from your own homes in the last year, performing under the most difficult situations that this crazy year has created. We thank you so much for your tireless efforts. We could not do it without you.
And speaking of tireless efforts, our gala this year was an unforgettable, over-the-top success. Thank you again to Barb Eddington and Susie Gomes. Without you two and your committee, this event would never have happened. We have ordered special crystal apples for you as a token of our appreciation, and they will be delivered to your homes. Thank you so, so much.
Bella Wang, chair of our Voting Reform Committee, DEI committee, and board member, is stepping down from the board, although Bella is retaining her chair of the Voting Reform Committee. Bella, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. You know, we will miss your insights at the board. We will miss you keeping us on the straight and narrow. And we know that the Voting Reform Committee will continue to prosper under your leadership.
And thanks to Rob McConnell for all your help designing the annual meeting packet. We're making a habit of this. Kathy? Kathy, are you?
I mute. Okay. I would like to present award to Jason. The head of the New York City League would like to recognize him and honor his insight and dedication to creating the New York City and now the New York State Youth Civic Initiative. YCI has provided space for young activists to be connected, to develop their skills and grow. Jason, how many, I don't know if he can answer this, how many organizations are now in your network? I think it's like 100 and some. Anyways, he has worked with leagues across the state. I unfortunately don't have the award to show you, Jason and Jane. The picture will be coming tonight and the award will be coming in the morning. It says we're honoring, the league is honoring the Jason and the NYC Youth Civic Initiative for their initiative, their foresight, and perseverance. And I want to thank them all and applaud you for your vision and determination. You have been an awesome addition to the New York City League.
Thank you. And we are also pleased to announce at this point that just last week at State Convention, we were honored with a $500 award for our Get Out the Vote efforts. So thanks to Deb Brodheim, Susie Gomes, Laura Quigg, Jerry Russo, and all the volunteers who worked tirelessly on these efforts. And now that our work this evening has come to an end, do we have a motion to adjourn the 2021 annual meeting of members?
Barb Eddington has moved to adjourn. Thank you so much, Barb. Thank everyone for coming. Thank you to all of you who stayed this long. I hope you all have a very good evening. I call the 2021 annual meeting of members adjourned.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for all your hard work. We so appreciate it.